all about Bitcoin, a show dedicated to all things questions and markets related to Bitcoin, little b for the currency, and Bitcoin, big B for the network. A collective journey to understand, apply, and use this information, all Bitcoin all the time. Your host, Christine Lee. Let's have a live look at Bitcoin right now. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XVX index is at $28,278. Bitcoin is down over 5% over the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data.
The chart of the day is brought to you by Crypto.com, the world's fastest growing crypto app.
Stablecoin drama continues to ripple across the crypto markets. Tether, the world's largest stablecoin by market capitalization, dipped as low as 96 cents, according to CoinDesk data. Terra's UST stablecoin also diving to levels as low as 28 cents. Crypto index platform Futures saying the UST depegging has caused market-wide ripple effects. What we are seeing now is panic, people running for the exits and losing faith. BTC long liquidations took a beating overnight too. According to data from CoinGlass, over the last 24 hours, $430 million was liquidated. Long liquidations took up $277 million and shorts accounted for $198 million. Hashdex saying this is a standard event you see in conventional futures markets and is now taking its toll on the crypto markets due to the nascent asset and the lack of experienced investors using these instruments. Hashdex adding that because long liquidations are dominating the market, they could push the price of BTC down further. Let's take a look at some of our headlines. CITADEL, Securities, BlackRock, and crypto exchange GEMINI are slamming social media conspiracy theories, accusing them of shorting and bringing about UST's collapse. The rumor began on 4chan and they were amplified by Cardano founder Charles Hoskinson. All parties deny involvement, BlackRock and CITADEL saying they do not trade UST or stablecoins respectively. And finally, a joint body tasked with coordinating crypto regulation globally is sorely needed and could become a reality within the next year, according to Ashley Alder, chair of the International Organization of Securities Commissions, an association of market regulators. Speaking at an online conference, Alder saying the growth of digital currency markets and their increasing connection to mainstream finance has made crypto a top focus area for regulators around the world. All right, let's dive into the BTC price analysis and markets conversation with Joe Orsini. He joins us right now. Hello there, Joe. Thanks for coming on to the show. So you see this as a buying opportunity, according to your notes.
Sure, yeah. And so that's exactly what we wrote in our weekly commentary. And what we're really seeing is that this is an opportunity. If you look at markets, you can see that we're in an extraordinary period of volatility. We're on our sixth straight week of declines for not just Bitcoin, but also traditional equities as well. And so when you kind of look at the pessimism that's occurring now as prices moving lower, it does serve as a slight contrarian signal to us that things could be setting up for really a not all that bad rally the rest of the year. And so that's kind of what we're seeing and then what we're kind of looking for going forward.
All right, well, one of the quickest 5-day losses in Bitcoin's history also happened. And I'm wondering if you could go over what were some of the catalysts of this? Why is this happening? Is it more for macro reasons, or is it because it's more crypto-centric because of the downfall of UST that we're seeing?
So broadly, we say that the pullback is macro specific. And one of the things we talk about really is that the pullback really began in early November. And that was with synchronous highs in not just Bitcoin and Ether, but as well as the NASDAQ composite, small cap growth, momentum, high beta. And so we're really in a 6-month bear market to begin. That being said, of course, price certainly was exacerbated this weekend over the concerns with what happened with Luna and what happened with UST. And really, as a result of that, spread to broader contagion. And you saw some fear over the weekend. And again, just as you're showing, you do see that this was one of the quickest weekly losses in Bitcoin's recent history. And so again, it does make sense with what's going on in the market. However, of course, naturally over the long term, it really does not change the long-term thesis.
And do you think this is more of an institutional sell-off or retail sell-off?
I would say it's probably both, right? And so when you have an altcoin going from, a high of, let's just say 100 to now below 1 cent. Of course, there's some selling pressure in there. And the one thing that we'd say is, you are seeing greater quantitative strategies, systematic strategies utilizing Bitcoin. And so, of course, when price is going down, you're starting to see broader selling. And that to us does illustrate some institutional, but of course there was panic. And of course there was some retail selling as well.
Another really interesting chart is the spent output profit ratio, which is a measure of transaction profitability, and it demonstrates on-chain data suggesting capitulation. So how much are folks losing, and how does it compare to previous bear market bottoms?
Exactly what you said. So that shows the aggregate profitability of on-chain transactions, and at extremes does provide insight into the sentiment. What we're seeing is on Monday, that number reached 0.87, which is about a 13% aggregate loss. And most recently yesterday, it was about 0.85. And so when you look back at history, we can find four instances where, four attractive instances where, that number was below 0.9. One being late January 2022, which kicked off the rally that ultimately ended at the end of Q1. But you also saw a number, let's see on my notes here, 0.87. And that was actually 0.9, which was in July 20th, which marked the low of the 2021 year. 0.71 sober spend output profit ratio during March of 2020 during the COVID capitulation, and then 0.81 on December 14th, 2018, which is in the middle of the tariff war bottom as well. And so when you look back at history, you do see those signs of extremes. We're seeing that right now and recently with Bitcoin in this environment.
All right, so how low can it go for Bitcoin, and how much longer do you think this will last?
So bottoms are a process, and so we did see, a significant drawdown in WIC earlier overnight into a period. I think it was about 25.5. One area you could look for would be that realized price, which is about 24,500, 24.5, and so that is a potential. But ultimately, for long-term investors, you have an opportunity to purchase Bitcoin significantly off its highs, and for a reason where it's really macro specific and not necessarily idiosyncratic, right? And so because of that, it provides an attractive opportunity for those with long-term horizons, those really looking to plan for the future and really buy Bitcoin off of its highs rather than at its highs.
Well, in Bitcoin, at least we've seen drawdowns of anywhere from 50% to 80%. 50%, we're definitely seeing that right now, but 80% could see Bitcoin all the way down to $14,000. Do you think that's a possibility?
It's tough to say. Of course, if you do see continued stress in equity markets, as you're seeing today, Bitcoin bounced from the low of about 25,500 and really rallied, but there's been weakness with equities all day. And so, it seems as if right before I logged on here, it looks like, Bitcoin is again rolling over. So there's going to need to be a bottom in risk assets and in order for really Bitcoin to bottom. What you do see in history is that Bitcoin often bottoms before equities, but really you're going to need a robust rally.
Well, Joe, would you advise to buy or keep holding until now?
We don't necessarily want to give a price, but if you're looking to DCA and if you're long-term investors, of course, these are the attractive opportunities, especially as there's increasing pessimism in the market, right? And so again, price has gone down for 6 straight weeks, and now you're seeing a lot of bearish action. In history, over time, you're seeing people that really maintain conviction, practice patience, and really add on weakness when others are fearful is ultimately, rewarded over the long term.
All right, dollar cost average strategy. Thanks, Joe, for joining us. That was Eaglebrook Advisors Director of Research, Joe Orsini. Coming up, we've got investment opportunities in Africa and Latin America to talk about with OP Crypto VC David Gahn. Welcome back. Pan-African centralized crypto exchange tomorrow raising $23 million in a funding round led by Coinbase Ventures and Alameda Research, as well as others. Mara plans to invest in a suite of products targeting Nigeria and Kenya, Africa's two largest countries, before expanding to East Africa and Francophone countries. Joining us now to discuss investment opportunities in Africa is David Gahn, founder and general partner at OP Crypto. Hello there, David. So you just got back from Africa. I understand you visited South Africa, Botswana, as well as Zimbabwe. Tell me a bit about your thoughts on the potential for Bitcoin in Africa.
Yes, definitely. So had a 3-week stint in parts of Africa, was speaking actually at the Forbes Summit there, giving the Web3 crypto keynote and sharing sort of my thoughts on the market overall and giving advice to some of the entrepreneurs out there. So there's vast amount of opportunities there as, people in Africa not only use Bitcoin as a facilitator for payment, transacting in sort of the local merchants, but also using as a storage of value. As soon as they get their paycheck, a lot of sort of inflation takes away and wipes out a lot of their earnings. Since countries like Zimbabwe is super unstable in its national currency, and they see that as sort of a long-term holding where they can actually, have saving in sort of their personal holdings. But also many of the different infrastructure that's being built out in Africa are actually some of the new fintech firms, like the infrastructure, like the exchanges, wallets, a lot of sort of the ways where people can actually have access to crypto. And no one there is really affected by the recent crypto downturn as it is, because they're using sort of the core infrastructures as we speak.
Interesting. Do you have an idea of what proportion of the population is using Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies? And do you have a sense of, how that is developing in the country? Do they have access to internet? How and what demographics are using them? What age?
Definitely. So Africa is actually surprisingly very well connected to the web. So pretty much every single person has a smartphone. And pretty much every single person has heard about crypto in some way or form. So definitely amongst the younger demographic, everyone is sort of hopped in sort of in the crypto bandwagon, either themselves possessing crypto individually, but or transacting on a day-to-day basis. So I think Africa is one of those countries, much like myself coming from China, where they're essentially leapfrogging mobile payments straight into crypto, whereas China leapfrog sort of the traditional credit card payments into mobile payment. I think Africa is sort of a continent in itself where there's not that much incumbent banking infrastructure to replace. I mean, it's just a much better form of actually having on-chain payments and also having a very efficient money market where they're able to really transact across borders. Especially all the different African countries use different currencies, and crypto is the only currency that's super interoperable across all borders, especially given that dollar is not as accessible in those markets as much as crypto.
So what kind of projects most interest you? I mean, we heard that Mara Exchange was raising a whole bunch of money, but what projects or infrastructure, payments, what kind of opportunities and investments are interesting to you?
Yeah, definitely. So beyond just Africa, I think LATAM also plays a big role in the emerging markets. So, actually just earlier today, we talked to a company called Sensei Node, who's building staking and node infrastructure for a lot of sort of the crypto native layer 1 protocols. And I think that's a big, service within sort of the crypto world that's not tapped in these emerging markets yet. And second, it's when you think about sort of the Aves and compounds in the world and the decentralized sort of finance and lending markets, a lot of those people are now looking to take, quick payday loans. People in Africa still very much go to the over-the-top counters to really take these payday loans to pay for their day-to-day expenses, pay for groceries, all of that. I think being able to do in a trustless and on-chain way where they're getting their money more efficiently and also with less collateral, I think that's something that definitely could fuel sort of these emerging markets.
Do you have a sense of what cryptocurrencies folks in Africa, folks in Latin America are using the most? And how do you compare the opportunities and potential in Latin America compared to Africa?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one advantage for Africa is that, at least amongst the countries I've been to, everyone speaks English very, very well, right? I think English is still the de facto sort of communicator as a language for the global market. So, Africa has a very keen sense on what's going on in the international markets and being able to communicate for their efforts. I think LATAM is a little bit weaker in that, most people still only speak Spanish and Portuguese in Brazil. So I think there's definitely a lot of language barrier when I went there versus Africa. But all in all, I think, people mostly use Bitcoin to start, given that, Bitcoin has already been an illegalized tender in El Salvador. And I think one other country, I forgot which one it was, but it was next to Ghana in Africa that actually approved Bitcoin as a legal tender as well. And actually, news about Bitcoin, even in China today, actually in Shanghai High Court, approved sort of Bitcoin as a sort of legal commodity in the sort of virtual asset space. And like someone actually won in court in like some person like owed him 1 Bitcoin, and like that actually got settled in court, and like that person had to pay out. So
That's
more
right.
and more of these countries are actually seeing Bitcoin as a legitimate asset class and like building regulation around it, so that not only the government sees it as a sort of natural facilitator for payments, but also like as an asset that citizens hold that they were able to actually protect against.
It's interesting. Also, we got to wrap it there, David, but one last question. Did you ever invest in UST Luna? Why or why not?
Yeah, so I mean, I think myself individually, I'm not necessarily invested in the secondary markets at all. So because I'm, founder of a venture capital fund, we mostly really invest in the primary markets and like early protocols, building out sort of infrastructure for Web3, but also more on the application layers and gaming, metaverse, and also NFTs. But I'm sure, ultimately a lot of my peers and a lot of the bigger institutions all have, UST Luna exposure. I mean, it's a sad day for the entire crypto space. A lot of people are affected, but ultimately, I think, I think the big advice there is not to use too much leverage whenever sort of you're getting into the space that's still fairly new. And especially in the algorithmic stablecoin, a lot of sort of the methodology is not fully proven out. So really sticking to like what we do best, and that's really the venture market, and that's where I have most of my exposure.
All right, David, thanks for your insights. Appreciate you coming on. That was OP Crypto founder and general partner, David Gahn. And that's it for All About Bitcoin. I'm your host, Christine Lee. We'll do it all over again tomorrow at 3 o'clock, as well as join us tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. in New York for First Mover. You're watching CoinDesk TV.